What they found beneath this massive boulder shocked the Oak Island team. And what shocked them most wasn't the boulder itself. It was what the soil underneath was telling them, that a 40,000-pound stone had been deliberately positioned over a ring of smaller rocks, concealing a backfilled shaft that no known searcher had ever touched. When geoscientist Dr. Ian Spooner ran his X-ray fluorescence device across those soil samples, the readings stopped him cold: silver, lead, and chemical signatures pointing to controlled underground fires, a ventilation technique practiced in medieval European mines. Were the first people to look at this thing in a modern sense. We found what might be the most significant thing. It's just not anything you could make up. I'm hoping there's a breakthrough. The team had been digging on this island for years. They had found coins, tunnels, timber, and flooded chambers, but nothing with this specific combination of evidence. Nothing this intact. Nothing this deliberately and carefully hidden beneath something this massive. What was under that boulder? Who put it there? How long ago did they bury it? The answers may reach back much further than anyone on Oak Island has ever publicly dared to claim. We all want answers, but I don't want to accelerate the process in a destructive or invasive way just to get an answer. The boulder that changed everything. When Rick Lagina walked onto Lot 8 that morning and saw what the team had uncovered, his face said everything before any words came out. Something about the structure, the way it only appeared on one side of the feature, asymmetrical yet unmistakably intentional, told him immediately that this was not natural. And here's the catch: the boulder they had removed 1 week earlier weighed 40,000 pounds, 20 tons, and had been positioned with precision over a ring of smaller, carefully arranged stones. It looked like a cradle, as if the boulder had been set like a cap over something much older and far more important. Someone had placed it there with purpose, with resources, and with a plan that required an understanding of weight, leverage, and concealment that does not happen by accident. Think about what that actually means in practical terms. Moving a stone that size without modern machinery demands ropes, rollers, levers, and a crew that knows exactly what it is doing. It demands time. It demands preparation. It demands a level of organizational coordination that rules out any casual or accidental explanation. I think it's interesting the way that the rocks are structured on this side, on the right side. Yeah. And we're not getting the same thing on the other side at all. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the only side that was actually holding up the boulder. Someone looked at a 40,000-pound boulder and decided it was the right tool for the job. And the job was hiding something well enough that it would stay hidden for centuries, but the boulder wasn't just dropped on top of bare earth. When the team finally lifted it clear, they weren't looking at ordinary ground underneath. They were looking at soil that had been deliberately packed into what appeared to be a man-made shaft, backfilled by human hands, sealed by a boulder the size of a small house, and left undisturbed for God knows how long. The asymmetry in the rock arrangement on one side of the feature was consistent with the boulder having been cradled into position from above, nestled into a prepared cradle of smaller stones, then left exactly there. Fiona Steele, the archaeologist working the site, said it plainly. She had never seen anything like this on Oak Island. She had never seen anything like it in Nova Scotia, period. With the Lot 8 feature, I feel absolutely intrigued. It's not like anything we see on Oak Island or anything in Nova Scotia, period. This is motivating us to look through the rocks, look through the structures. We've got to look at everything and make sure that we're not missing anything in this. She had worked archaeological sites across the province. She knew what natural stone formations looked like, what glacial deposits looked like, and what centuries of undisturbed settling looked like. This wasn't any of those things. The team stood at the edge of the feature and looked down into backfilled soil that predated every search, every drill, and every recorded expedition this island had ever seen. And somewhere below that soil, something was waiting, the shocking reality. Dr. Ian Spooner arrived on Lot 8 with a handheld X-ray fluorescence device and pressed it into the soil samples pulled from beneath the boulder. His screen lit up. Spooner, a geoscientist who has spent years analyzing Oak Island soils, stared at the reading: silver, not in trace amounts you could dismiss as background contamination, but actual silver in concentrations he had never encountered in any other sample from across the entire island. He looked at the readout. He looked at the team. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Rick Lagina laughed. Because what else do you do when the ground beneath your feet is showing you something that shouldn't be there? It's showing something that I didn't see in the other sample. Oh, which is some silver. Yeah. Laughter. Here's what makes that silver reading matter beyond the obvious excitement. Spooner wasn't running tests on the surface soil of a random patch of Lot 8. He was analyzing material pulled from inside a deliberately backfilled feature, from the packed fill of a structure someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to cover and protect. The silver wasn't drifting in from adjacent ground. It was sitting inside the sealed space. Inside the thing they had been hiding, and get this, Spooner had sampled soils all over Oak Island. He had run XRF readings on material from the Money Pit area, from the swamp, from excavation sites right across the island. He had never, not once, seen a silver signature like this anywhere else. Only here. Only from inside this feature. Only from beneath this boulder. The team had come to Lot 8 expecting another layer of the island's familiar ambiguity, interesting formations, suggestive patterns, the usual maddening gap between clue and confirmation. What they got instead was a reading that pointed in one direction with a clarity Oak Island rarely delivers. Whatever is down there, it is in the right place. Mining technique lost to the centuries here is what the lead readings from beneath that boulder actually mean. Someone was burning fires underground on Oak Island, not accidentally, but deliberately as a ventilation technique. Controlled fires lit inside deep shafts to circulate air so that workers could survive long enough to keep digging. This is a medieval European mining practice documented in the ancient mines of Cornwall. It is not casual labor. It implies a shaft so deep that breathing became a problem. Whatever is buried below Lot 8, someone dug far enough to need fire just to reach it. The lead signatures in the soil are the chemical residue of that process. When fire burns in an enclosed underground space over an extended period, lead compounds accumulate in the surrounding material, in the walls of the shaft, in the packed earth, in the fill that gets pushed back in when the work is done. Spooner found those compounds. He found them at depth. And they were not consistent with a shallow feature. They were consistent with something that went down. We're just wondering if there's something underneath. You know, was there something intentionally buried? Yes. You know, we did some XRF, a portable XRF. We got high lead. And that's interesting to me. But here's what nobody is saying loudly enough. This technique, burning fires underground to circulate air in active shafts, requires knowledge. Not general knowledge. Specific, practiced, specialist knowledge of underground construction. The kind of knowledge you develop over generations of digging in the same tradition. The kind of knowledge that belongs to a particular place, a particular culture, a particular era. The team is looking at a feature where every single layer of evidence, the silver, the lead, the fire signatures, the sealed shaft, the 40,000-pound capstone, tells the same story. This was not improvised. This was not accidental. This was carried out by people who knew how to dig deep, how to keep workers alive at depth, and how to seal what they found at the bottom in a way that would last for centuries. Someone brought that knowledge to a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia. And then they buried what they came for, sealed it under 20 tons of stone, and disappeared without leaving a single trace of themselves behind. Fiona Steele and the stone that shouldn't exist. Archaeologist Fiona Steele found something no one expected, a tightly packed layer of stones, not scattered, not random, engineered. She turned to Dr. Spooner when he arrived and asked him directly, "Am I crazy? Because I don't feel like this is natural at all." Spooner didn't hesitate. "It's not natural. First of all, it just can't be because of the organic matter all around those stones. Emicham. I've never seen anything like this here." The stones bore no resemblance to any geological formation in his experience, and the organic material threading through them had no business being there if the structure had occurred naturally. "I'm blown away," Spooner said. And he meant it in the way scientists mean it when a framework they have spent a career building suddenly stops working. What exactly was Spooner looking at? The stones beneath the backfill weren't just present. They were arranged, deliberately placed in a way that created structure. A layer that was not geological deposition, but architectural intention. Fiona had removed the overlying soil carefully, working in the methodical way she always works, and the more she cleared, the more deliberate the pattern became, not a few rocks that might have tumbled into position over time, but a formation, a layer, almost a floor of tightly fitted stones sitting in organic matter that had accumulated around them over what must have been a very long time. It made no sense if geology had put them there, and every sense if human hands had. Then Fiona showed Spooner the perimeter. Around the base of the feature, a circular formation of rocks, a deliberate arc, a drawn boundary not suggested by the landscape, not a coincidence of erosion or settling, placed stone by stone with intention. A ring around a shaft under a 40,000-pound boulder. Whatever this is, it was not built quickly, and it was not built by someone who didn't know exactly what they were doing. Rick, Marty, and the weight of history. Rick stood at the feature and said it plainly, "I've worked with stone for a number of years. I see it and I think, how in the world would you do that? Why would you do that if you're not going to inter something underneath it? And if there is something underneath it, then it's got to be valuable to those persons." Valuable. On Oak Island, that word carries 2 centuries of weight because this island has been searched continuously since 1795. Men have spent fortunes on it. Men have died on it. Entire companies have been formed, funded, and eventually broken apart by the relentless pursuit of whatever is buried here, and in all that time, across all those expeditions, every promising discovery has eventually had to answer the same uncomfortable question: was this made by treasure hunters, or was this made by whoever hid the treasure? The Lot 8 boulder answered that question in a way that almost nothing else on the island has managed to. Marty Lagina saw the footage over a phone call and made the observation that reframed everything. "The boulder on Lot 8, he said, doesn't appear in any historical record of the island's known searchers. No prior disturbance, no documentation, nothing in the record." That sentence, standing alone, changes what this discovery means. Every previous find on Oak Island has been shadowed by 200 years of competing expeditions. Every artifact evaluated against the possibility of contamination by earlier searchers. But this boulder, this stone ring, this backfilled shaft, untouched, unmarked, unknown, were the first people to look at this thing in a modern sense. Marty said, "Let that land." In 230 years of documented searching, no one wrote it down. No one dug it up. No one even mentioned it. Which means what the team is looking at has been sitting exactly as it was left by whoever left it, since before any searcher ever set foot on this island with a shovel. Every expedition that came before them walked right past it. Every drill rig, every excavator, every researcher who ever pored over the island's soil, none of them found this. And now Rick and Marty Lagina and their team are the ones standing at its edge, looking down into soil that no modern eye has ever seen, holding the question this island has always asked but never fully answered. A European hand and a Portuguese coin. Fiona Steele was direct about what she was looking at. I believe strongly that what we're seeing is a European megalithic construction. She had researched megalithic structures across North America and Europe, and the structural logic of the Lot 8 feature matched the tradition. I've done a lot of research on different megalithic structures and megaliths across North America and even in Europe. I believe strongly that what we're seeing is a European megalithic construction. The stone ring, the cradle boulder, the sealed shaft, in ways she could not dismiss as coincidence. The engineering required an intimate knowledge of physics and geometry that points to builders with formal, practiced knowledge. Builders from somewhere this kind of work was common. Rick agreed. I don't think we have the technology to do it. You'd need an intimate knowledge of physics and geometry, nor would they bother to move a boulder like that. So it has to be a European construct. That makes the most sense to me. It's almost certainly European. And the team standing around the feature together found no one willing to argue otherwise. Megalithic construction is a specific tradition. It is not simply building with large rocks. It refers to a deliberate architectural philosophy, the use of massive, carefully positioned stones in combination with smaller arranged material to create structures of cultural, ceremonial, or functional significance. It is found across Western Europe, particularly along the Atlantic coastline. It is old. It is purposeful. And according to Fiona Steele, it is exactly what the team is looking at on Lot 8. And there is corroborating evidence already in the record. In 1849, a 14th-century silver coin was recovered from the depths of the Money Pit, the central shaft that has defined the Oak Island mystery since 1795. A Portuguese coin from the 1300s pulled from a shaft so elaborately engineered, wooden platforms every 10 feet, flood tunnels designed to repel unauthorized recovery, that whoever built it was not an amateur. They were planners, engineers, people hiding something worth an extraordinary, almost incomprehensible amount of effort to protect. And here's the connection. Marty raised something that stopped the room cold. Back in 2020, the team uncovered a stone road in the southeast corner of the swamp, a road believed to be at least 500 years old and of probable Portuguese origin. 2 features on the same island, separated by geography and possibly by centuries, both pointing toward the same source. And now a third, the Lot 8 stone feature with its circular ring, its sealed shaft, its silver-laced soil, and its medieval fire signatures deep in the ground. I think this is culturally significant. It's either here to cover something or it's here to mark something. And we can't rule out a number of ideas for this at this point. I mean, it could have been ceremonial. Consider what it would have taken. A group of people crosses the Atlantic before Columbus, navigates to a small island off the coast of what is now Nova Scotia, locates a site, excavates a shaft deep enough to require fire ventilation, places whatever they are hiding at the bottom, backfills the shaft, constructs a stone ring around the perimeter, positions a 40,000-pound boulder on top, and cleans up every trace of their presence before sailing away. That is not an improvised operation. That is a mission. That is an organization with resources, discipline, and an absolute commitment to secrecy. Marty raised the possibility that the Lot 8 stone feature and that Portuguese coin are connected to the same hand, the same operation, spanning the same island, built by the same people with the same purpose. If he's right, what the team is looking at isn't just a local curiosity. It's a coherent picture of an organized pre-colonial European presence on Oak Island, one that predates every colonial narrative attached to this part of the world and one that brought something here valuable enough to bury under 20 tons of stone. This could be changing Nova Scotian history. What lies beneath? Rick was clear about the pace. I don't want to accelerate the process in a destructive or invasive way just to get an answer. The next step is to draw cross-sections before removing anything further. Then work down through the stone layer by layer. That discipline matters more here than almost anywhere the team has worked before. We have to draw this cross-section first very quickly, and then take out the rest of the soils because the rocks are quite dramatic. Oak Island has a long history of discoveries damaged or destroyed by impatience, shafts collapsed, evidence lost, flood systems triggered by teams moving too fast. The Lagunas have always operated differently. They document before they dig. They consult before they remove. And when they find something this significant, this intact, this loaded with converging evidence, they slow down because they understand that what's inside the ground is irreplaceable once it's disturbed. But here is what no one on the team can fully explain: the site is completely clean. They expected to find trace evidence of the builders, dropped tools, discarded material, a button, a coin, a scrap of rope. They found none of it. No buttons, no coins, no rope or leather or broken tools. Nothing left behind by the people who built this. That absence is not nothing. It is a choice. Either every perishable trace dissolved into centuries of soil, or the builders swept the site clean before they left. Either way, it points to something old, something deliberate, something concealed with a care that borders on obsession by people who clearly understood that whatever they were protecting was worth leaving no trail to find. Rick noticed it and understood immediately what it implied. That alone is also indicating that either somebody was really trying to hide what they did here, or they really didn't have things to lose. Which is also giving us implications that this could be really, really old. Really, really old. No artifacts yet. On an island where every decade of searching has pushed the timeline of the original deposit further back into history, that phrase lands differently than it used to. The early theories placed the original burial in the late 1700s. Then the 1600s. Then the 1400s. Now the soil chemistry, the megalithic construction style, and the Portuguese coin from the money pit are all pointing towards something that may predate Columbus entirely, something from a world before the New World was the New World, when the North Atlantic was not a frontier but a route, and this island was a destination, and the lack of any artifact, any dropped object, any evidence of human presence beyond the stones and the soil chemistry itself tells its own story. These were not explorers passing through. They were not settlers. They came here for one specific purpose. They accomplished it and they left. Whatever they hid it because it mattered enough to cross an ocean for. It mattered enough to dig a shaft deep enough to need fire to breathe. It mattered enough to cap with 20 tons of stone and never speak of again. It would be with incredible purpose, Dr. Spooner said. That's why, to me, there should be something more here, something significant, something worth all of this. Fiona Steele looked at the stone ring, the sealed shaft, the soil that had returned a silver reading no one expected, and said what the evidence was telling her: there could be treasure down there. Once the team removes the next stone layer and the cross-sections reveal what lies directly below, they will know whether this structure goes deeper and whether those fire signatures point to a shaft that has never in the entire recorded history of Oak Island been found or opened. The next dig could answer questions this island has been holding for centuries. Subscribe now so you don't miss what they discover when they continue. This version keeps every scientific detail, exact quotes, boulder weight, chemical signatures, historical connections, and cautious approach while sounding fresh and natural. Let me know if you'd like any small adjustments.